Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So the last, one of the last posts that I did on, I don't think it was a video. In fact, I think it was just a text comment. I was talking about the fact that my mother was, we called in hospice it's been about 2 weeks ago now. And many of you have written and commented and things and asked me, how my mom was doing, especially those of you who have followed the channel for a while. We had a huge tree, a huge tree that fell on my mother's house back during the hurricane that hit here in October of last year. And very, very thankful. We are finished with the actual rebuild part. Now, there's a few more things we've got to do, but the actual rebuild part where we could get my mother's house back in a livable condition and get her things moved back in. There's some things that went on with that I haven't talked about on this channel. And if you've got a moment, I want to share some stories with you that are just, I hope they inspire your faith. I hope they encourage you. They're things that are very encouraging when I sit and, and I think about them because, man, what an amazing, I'm very thankful. Back in October, we'll go back and I'll start talking there. Back in October, there was a hurricane that hit Valdosta here, and it was rough, man. It was pretty rough. It was one of the worst storms that I have ever personally seen, and I have been up close and personal with a couple of tornadoes, and now a couple of 2 or 3 hurricanes. This was by far the worst one that I personally have ever seen. The night the hurricane hit, we were here at home, and literally you can almost feel the house shake from the velocity and the power of this wind and this rain. And it's, it's very sobering. My phone rang that night, and I picked it up. It was my sister, and she told me about this tree that had fallen in the middle of the night on my mother's house. And literally the tree stopped just not too far above my mom. Had it to come on down further, this tree would have crushed her. Now, when I say that this was big, I'm sorry, I usually have a stand here to set my cup. We moved it recently, so I keep leaning. I'm looking for somewhere to sit it. I'm going to just have to hold it. But anyway, this tree was just massive. And I'll post some pictures maybe. Some of you guys are friends with me on Facebook. Maybe I'll post some pictures on my Facebook profile to show you guys kind of how huge this thing was. Anyway, this happened in the middle of the night, right during this storm. I get this phone call, and there's literally nothing you can do but pray. There's nothing that you can do but pray. And so when we found out this new, my first response was, oh my God. My sister, in a bit of a panic, my sister was like, the house is gone, and I thought, man, this thing just crushed the house. Well, it did probably a third of the house. It did crush it in. But my mother was okay. They were able to get out. She had her sister, my aunt, was staying with them at the time because she lives in a modular home, and they have to get out of those, during bad weather. They don't recommend you stay in them. So she was staying with my mom. And her son works for the city of Valdosta, and he was able to get the fire department in their big trucks. They can maneuver in that high wind a lot better than I can in a pickup or on a motorcycle. So they were able to go over there, and they tried to get them to leave, but they're 3 very stubborn women. My mom, my sister, my aunt, I love them, but very stubborn. They were like, we ain't going nowhere. They stayed there. Well, the next morning, as soon as we could, I went over there. We had been praying for their safety all night. My sister called me back and said, hey, the fire department's come over here. They've checked the house and everything's okay. They say it's safe for us to stay in, per se. Anyway, the next morning I went over there, and I'll be honest, when I saw this tree laying across my mother's house, you couldn't even see the house. If you didn't know there was a house there, you wouldn't have known it by the road. And people are riding by and they're just kind of gawking and looking, you know. And overhead, there's helicopters flying over, filming all this stuff. Because this was right before we knew about the devastation up in Asheville, North Carolina. All the news helicopters and everything were focused right here in Valdosta at that time. And guys, I was so overwhelmed. I was completely overwhelmed. Now, my mother has Farm Bureau, Georgia Farm Bureau insurance. And so I called her insurance company immediately because I knew that all of this stuff with the storm was going to be very, very rough. Well, the first thing I did when I saw that tree on my mom's house, I literally went outside by myself. I got away from everybody in my family. I'm going to move this a little bit. I got away from everybody in my family, my wife, my children, my mother, sister, aunt, everybody. I just got alone with myself. And I remember just kneeling down beside that tree, and I said, Lord, I need help. I have no idea how to even begin. And I didn't know. I mean, I really did not know. I said, Lord, this. I've never dealt with anything like this before. This is going to have to be dealt with by somebody that knows what they're doing. And I just need guidance. And I prayed for wisdom. And then, you know, I went back outside and we were looking at everything. I had a buddy of mine that I called him up. He was in tree service, and he came over and he looked at it and he said, man, this is bigger. This is bigger than anything I'm capable of. But he knew a guy, and long story short, he called and they got that tree. They worked he pulled his crew off of another job that wasn't as pressing. Because I told him, I said, as long as it rains with that tree, there's water going to come into her house. It needs to have the tree removed, and that house needs to be tarped as soon as possible. One whole wall in the house was gone, an outer wall. And so I called my buddy, and he sent this crew over. They literally knocked off of one job, came over there, and cut this tree down. Well, in the meantime, I called Farm Bureau, and I worked with a gentleman. All I'm going to say his name was Trey. When I prayed and asked the Lord to send me help, man, he did in so many ways. And I'll tell you even more. But everybody from the insurance company, Trey at Georgia Farm Bureau, was absolutely great. And guys, I have heard some horror stories of people dealing with their insurance companies after that hurricane. I had a guy, to this day, he has been amazing. Anyway, I called him up. He came over immediately, and he took a look at my mom's house. Well, immediately these out-of-state contractors start coming in. They're like vultures, man. They just, you know, they literally just lock on you and, hey, we'll get your house. And we had this guy. It was a Mexican family. I think like a mom or a dad and son and a sister and a sister-in-law. Anyway, whole family. And they came down, and like I said, I didn't know anything about this stuff. Never had a house built before. So not really sure how all this stuff. Where this guy shows up and he starts telling me, hey, you get an insurance check, you sign it over to me, man. We get your home put together. 2 weeks, we have your house. And I thought to myself, that sounds odd. But I didn't know. You know, I didn't know about storm chasers. I didn't know about these guys who do this stuff. They'll put a magnetic sign on the side of their truck. They'll use a burner telephone, a fake business name, a fake telephone number, and they come in, they collect insurance checks, and they leave. And they'll do usually some shoddy work that later on the homeowner has to come back and repair. And I was just praying, God, please lead me, help me work my way through this maze of uncertainty because I literally did not know where to even begin. But through Providence, we were able to get the house off. Well, the insurance guy walked up to me and he just said something to me. We were talking to this family, that promised they could get my mom's house put back together. They were even promising stuff that she didn't even have in the house, like we can get this and we can get that, and stuff that the home didn't even have before the storm. They were saying they could get it and they could get it installed in 2 weeks. Just hurry up and sign a check over. It just gave me a bad vibe. And the insurance guy walked up to me and he just said, be very, very careful when you go to choose a contractor. And that's all he said. He didn't say anything one way or the other, but he said enough that it made me think, be cautious here, be cautious here. And so these people were promising they could do this, that, there, and the other. And I said, well, the first thing we need to do, we need to get the house tarped off. And the wall was completely missing on the house. They literally went, I think, to probably Big Lots, bought the cheapest tarps they could find, came back over and just laid them out across the roof. No underlayment, no wood underneath those tarps. It was just basically the tarp and nothing underneath. So if it rains, it fills up like a big water balloon and it falls through, and now you got a big swimming pool. When I saw the shoddiness of the tarp job that they did, it really, I thought, man, who do you call? Who do you call? And if you've ever dealt with construction companies, and I've never had a house built, I have dealt with construction companies. We had an addition built onto our house a while back, and I can tell you, if they tell you they'll be there Monday, they might. If they tell you they'll be there next Friday, they might. But it's not guaranteed. I mean, I hate to say it, but when you're dealing with construction and contract work and things like that, they seldom ever do what they tell you that they're going to do, in my experience. And so I was really worried about this. I was really concerned about doing all this stuff. And I have a lot of animals, a lot of farm animals and things, and I had to go. I go to a feed mill and I buy feed for my chickens and my pigs and things. And so I had to go and get this feed, and I was riding over to get my feed. I was pulling a trailer and I was far out of town, and I was literally just praying, Lord, if this company that is offering their services, pressuring us to accept their services, more like it, if this is a bad deal, then stop me, show me, warn me, give me an alternative, just lead me in this. I need wisdom making this decision outside of myself. And I was riding down the road, and all of a sudden I saw this little sign. I mean, little sign too. It wasn't like a billboard. It was like one of those signs that the people put out when they want to be elected, like one of those signs that sticks in the ground, And it had a name of a construction company, and it had a phone number underneath it. Now, I'm going to tell you something about me. First of all, I'm not a guy of great detail. If you tell me your name, I'll probably ask you again 4 or 5 times before I remember your name. I'm horrible. Remembering phone numbers, forget it. I don't remember phone numbers anymore. I'm just not that mind-oriented. But I saw this sign, and I saw the phone number on the sign, and as I was riding along, I thought to myself, could that be? Here's your sign. Could that be the Lord's leading? And I'll be honest with you, I kind of dismissed it. I kept driving. I got back home. My sister called me. She said, hey, this tarp just blew off the house. Can you get those people to come back over and fix it? So I called them up, and I was like, hey, can you fix this tarp? And the guy's like, oh, man, as soon as you assign the insurance check over to me, we get your mama house rebuilt, and all this stuff on and on and on. And it went. And I was like, look, right now, I just need you to go back and fix the job you've already done. And already billed my insurance company for, by the way. They had submitted the bill almost immediately, $300 for like $20 worth of tarps. And the insurance company hadn't paid it yet, thankfully. But anyway, so at that point, he says, well, we don't have nobody that can go over there right now and fix this tarp. And I said, man, we got rain coming in, tomorrow. We need to have that thing recharged. Well, as soon as you get the check, the insurance check, we'll get it rebuilt. And I'm like, you know what? Just never mind. I got off the phone with the guy, blocked their phone number so he couldn't mess with me no more. And I remembered that phone number from that little bitty election-sized sign way out of town from hours ago. Came back to my mind, and I thought, what is the chance? So I called this number, and this lady answers the phone, and I was talking to her, and I began to explain to her, and she goes, oh, honey, you were about to be taken advantage of by a storm chaser. And I said, what is a storm chaser? And she explained to me how this gig works and how, again, they'll use the little magnetic sign on the side of their car, and they'll do all these things. And she said, what'll end up happening, they'll come over, they'll do some quick, shoddy work. They'll take the insurance check, they'll cash it, they'll deposit it into a, bank account or whatever. They'll take that magnetic sign off. They'll throw that burner phone away. They'll go get a new sign with a new business name, a new burner phone, and they're off to the next disaster. And that's what they do. They make a living preying on people in their time of kind of desperation. And so she told me, she said, what ends up happening later on, the homeowner has to come back and pay for the repairs out of their own pocket, and they have to fix a job that wasn't done right to begin with. So they sent a guy over that day. Well, the lady told me, she goes, it'll be a week or two before we can do it. And I said, okay. And I explained the situation to her that my mother had dementia. She was not going to leave this house. And she was actually going to live there because she refused to leave. So I was in a bit of a hurry. I got off the phone with her, and I'm still just like, Lord, please help. I need something quick. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to just go. I was really nervous. I was stressed out about this. I was fearful for my mom's sake. She didn't even have an outer wall on this house. And she don't, if you've ever dealt with somebody that has dementia, you can't go and stay with them because having someone extra in the house creates a bit of anxiety for them. They're not going to leave. So it was a very trying situation. So I just decided, I said, you know what? I'm just going to jump on my Harley. I'm going to ride around for a bit, and I'm just going to think and pray. And I fired up this motorcycle, and I'm riding. And all of a sudden, I feel my pocket vibrate. So, I pull over to the side of the road. I take my phone out, and I look, and I've got a missed call from this construction company. So I call the guy back. He goes, we're on our way to your mom's house. We're going over to look at it right now. And I said, I am about 20 minutes from there. I will meet you there. So I rode my bike over to my mom's house. They got there. They looked at the situation. They took those shoddy, big lot tarps off of the house. They came in. They used 1x4s. They framed up the roof. They laid a overlayment of tarp over it. They went around to the side. They put OSB. They made a temporary wall and tied it in, pulled the tarps over the outside, and did all this stuff. And I saw this, and I thought, now these guys know what they're doing. And this was from a sign on the side of the road where I'm literally praying, God, give me a sign if I'm if I'm about to make a mistake hiring this out-of-town bunch, And so I felt really good about this company. I want to tell you this, y'all. I'm going to give them some free advertisement. They were called J&J Construction and Roofing out of Moultrie, Georgia. And they were incredible. There's a guy there. His name was Chad, I believe it was. He's like the insurance guy that does estimates and works with the insurance company and all. There's another gentleman there. He's amputee. He's what they call I may be wrong about this, transtibial amputee. It's been a long time since I've worked in the field. I forget some of that. Below knee. He was a below knee amputee. And I'm very familiar with prosthesis. And so he and I had something, we kind of talked. I really liked the guy. And we got to talking a little bit. Come to find out, I knew the prosthetist that had made his his prosthetic leg. And he and I talked about that for quite a while. And anyway, he told me, he said, man, listen, I have had a mother who had dementia. He said, so I know what you're dealing with. I understand. Of all the people in the world, I'm working with a contractor that has been through what I'm going through with a mother that had the same thing my mom had. He understood. He knew what he was dealing with, what the situation was. And wow. I mean, so much to be thankful for. They got this house put back together. They brought a big shipping container over, parked it in my mother's front yard, and my family and I, we unloaded all of her furniture out of the house so they could get in there and rebuild. They had to redo, everything, man. It had to have a new wall put in, new windows, new trusses up in the ceiling, new underlayment, a new tile, excuse me, new, what do you call that? Shingles, new underlayment under shingles, which they actually found out some of the roof was rotted. So actually having to get that, and the insurance company being able to pay for the majority of that was kind of a blessing in disguise. The tree alone, just to cut the tree down, if my mother would have paid for it, would have cost her about $8,000. It was a very, very large tree. And all of this stuff was paid for by the insurance company. Well, almost all of it. I mean, they pay. My mom did get some upgrades. We did get some things for that the insurance company didn't pay. Like we figured while we're already at it, we might as well go ahead and do some new flooring in the house. And instead of just having the damaged areas of the house repainted, the painter that I hired, I actually got him to paint the entire house for my mom while he was there. But anyway, nonetheless, all of this worked so amazingly well. I mean, it went through. J&J Construction were top notch. But I mean, guys, this was nothing but answer to prayer all the way through. It really was. And man, so we got all this put back together, and my mom it's been a very, very difficult time for her. It's been a very trying time. I don't know if it would have been easier for my mom to go through this when she didn't have dementia. Maybe forgetting some things might have actually aided in her being able to get through this. Nonetheless, my mom took a turn for the worse after one of the things that I prayed, and I know with dementia is, well, to be quite honestly, it's a death sentence, usually. And people don't live terribly long time with dementia. And I just prayed and Lord, please let me, before you take my mom from this earth, I want to see her house finished. I want her house to be complete, at least livable. And we've had that for a while. And after we got all our furniture moved back in, there was, she took a turn for the worst. And my sister called me and she just said, hey, I need to meet, you need to come over, we need to talk. And she told me that she really believed we needed to call in hospice, which we did about 2 weeks ago now. Now, there's a few things that we still want to do. My mother's house has never had AC, believe it or not. Yes, I grew up in a home in southern Georgia that had no AC. I don't know how we did it, but we lived. We survived. But my mom's home has never had central AC. And now that this tree is gone, the house is open to the sun. This tree was literally so big, it covered the entire house. So the house never really got that hot. But now that the tree is gone, the house is getting hot. So we're working on getting a central heat and air unit in this house for my mom. Y'all pray for us about this. Again, this is one of those areas that I need to be guided by, because there's a lot of people out here that do these kind of things that are crooks, and we want to do a good job, and we want to employ good people. But my mom took a turn for the worse, so we called in hospice and we were talking, and I put that out here on the YouTube channel here some time back. And many of you guys told me, said, Ronnie, we will pray. We'll pray for your mom. And I appreciate that. And I have been going over to my mom's quite regularly. After the night, I posted that on YouTube and said, explain that. Many of you said you would pray. My sister called me a few days ago and she said, I don't know what's happened. She said, but her appetite came back. She began to eat again. I mean, my mother looked like she would die at any moment. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't drink. She was just very, very weak. And all of a sudden, she gets better. She begins to get hungry. She begins to want to eat again. Her appetite comes back. And the things that makes dementia, like my mother would ask about people who had been dead for 30 years, where is so-and-so at? You're like, Mom, they're no longer here. Well, yeah, they are there. And when people have dementia, their mind goes way back in time to, sometimes it'll go back to their childhood. I think in my mom's case, it went back to when her mother and most of her siblings were still alive. And she always asked about them. She was forever wanting to go take me, or I want to go visit my mom, and you would always have to tell her, listen, she's not here anymore. She passed away. And it's very sad. It's a sad thing to watch. That stopped. My sister told me, said she hasn't asked about no one. She's been in a better mood. She's been in a better spirit. She's not searching for people that's no longer there. She would wake up in the middle of the night and go outside looking for the kids. We don't even know what kids she was looking for, but it's just the way dementia is. But she stopped all of that. And, I mean, there's nothing that I can contribute that to. We haven't put my mom on any kind of drugs or anything. I mean, she takes medicine, like probably more medicine than I wish she would take, because I'm not really a big fan of doctors and pharmaceuticals and any of that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, I contribute it to just a God who hears and answers prayers, man. I mean, he really does. And so oftentimes we focus on the prayers that haven't been answered yet. We focus on the things that we've prayed for a long time that maybe God still hasn't answered those prayers, or at least to our liking. And I think sometimes if we're not careful, I know, sometimes doubt can creep in. Sometimes, I don't know if bitterness is the right word, but anxiety, worry, fear, maybe a little bit of, you ever been mad with God because you've prayed for something and you feel like maybe God hasn't given you a fair deal in this situation? And sometimes we fall into those situations, and I have many times in my life, and we forget to be thankful for stuff, things that he has done. And going through this with my mom has been a very real testimony. And there's a lot of details that I've left out because I'm not trying to do a 16-hour video here. I know many of you have families that you have to tend to, and I respect that. There's a lot of small details and things that God did for us, and timing things, just perfect timing issues. I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful. And, sometimes we get in these places and we think about all the times that we prayed for something and we got angry because God didn't answer it quick enough to our liking. Times like this, well, sometimes they can make you ashamed of those times, if we're honest. Anyway, thank you guys that have prayed for my mother and the situation. I really appreciate that. And I hope this story has been an encouragement to you, and as it certainly has been an encouragement to me to watch it all unfold. thank you guys for watching, man. Y'all have a good weekend.